Bon, mon nom, c'est sœur Anita Charpentier, native de Maillardville. Des rumeurs circulaient autour de nous depuis quelque temps, mais la nouvelle d'une seconde paroisse à Maillardville a été annoncée après la messe à Notre-Dame de Lourdes, un dimanche de novembre 1946. L'établissement de cette seconde paroisse dans notre petit village francophone, aux confins ouest du Canada, fut l'événement le plus important de ma jeunesse. Son impact chrétien et social, communautaire et spirituel a marqué mon enfance et ma vocation religieuse et continue d'influencer ma vie aujourd'hui alors que la paroisse fête son 75e anniversaire et moi, mes 83 ans. En 1946, même si je n'avais que 8 ans, il me semble encore entendre cette merveilleuse annonce d'une nouvelle paroisse sous le vocable de Notre-Dame de Fatima, à côté de chez moi. Ce n'était pas la mode à l'époque d'applaudir à l'église, même pour une si bonne nouvelle. Mais à la sortie de la messe à Lourdes, un courant de joie a éclaté parmi les paroissiens, subitement devenus fondateurs d'une nouvelle paroisse catholique et bien sûr francophones. Même les gens qui resteraient à Lourdes se réjouissaient avec nous et nous félicitaient. C'est un grand enthousiasme qui a soulevé le monde et s'est transformé en beau dévouement pour aider à bâtir la nouvelle paroisse. Une paroisse littéralement sortie des bois qu'il a fallu abattre pour construire l'église. Les hommes se sont donné la main pour la construire, une simple petite église de bois, dans la pauvreté des moyens et des matériaux, mais sous l'œil avisé du bon monsieur Fernand Filiatro. Tout le monde le connaissait à l'époque. Les dames se sont mises à l'œuvre pour inventer des bazars et des bingos en fabriquant une multitude de tricots et de petits vêtements, de jouets, de gâteaux à vendre, gagner ou à mettre aux enchères entre nous. Les enfants couraient partout, émerveillés des surprises déployées, pourtant si simples et modestes. À la quête du dimanche, chacun donnait généreusement de son indigence. Nous étions vraiment une grande famille, je dirais un peuple de frères et de sœurs. Comme il n'y avait pas de centres commerciaux, de télévision et même pas de téléphone, toute notre vie tournait autour de la paroisse et de ses activités, encadrées par la messe du dimanche et les fêtes liturgiques, les bénédictions du Saint-Sacrement, les 40 heures, les neuvaines, les chapelets selon le mois. Une chorale a rapidement surgi et des enfants de chœur ont été formés. Ce grand enthousiasme s'est maintenu dans la paroisse pendant toute ma jeunesse, alimenté par l'énergie inépuisable du curé fondateur, le père Ovila-Meunier. Comme oblat de Marie Immaculée, il nous a inculqué la connaissance et l'amour de notre foi et en particulier une dévotion ardente envers notre patronne, la Vierge de Fatima, dont il racontait sans cesse l'histoire. Le beau chant en son honneur, Dear Lady of Fatima, il l'entonnait comme un cri de ralliement. Auparavant, j'ai marché les 3000 à Lourdes pendant 3 ans. Nous étions quelques petites voisines qui marchaient ainsi, beau temps, mauvais temps. Et j'aimais la pluie parce qu'elle faisait friser mes cheveux. Alors, ce fut un soulagement quand l'école s'est ouverte à Fatima. Là, j'ai étudié 4 ans. Et au début, les plus jeunes se rassemblaient dans la nef de l'église, divisée en 4 classes pendant la semaine. Nous, les grands, nous allions en classe dans le soubassement du presbytère. Puis, en 1948, la construction de l'église, également faite par les paroissiens, a facilité l'enseignement donné par les dévouées sœurs de l'Enfant de Jésus de Dupuis, de vrais missionnaires. Le départ de ces chères sœurs après la grève scolaire en 1951 nous a bien affligés. Leur bonté et leurs compétences ont été un modèle pour moi. Quand je suis revenue enseigner à Fatima dans les années 1960, comme sœur du bon pasteur de Québec. Je tiens à dire un mot de la grève scolaire en 1951. Je m'en souviens si bien. Quand nous sommes arrivés à l'école le mardi de Pâques, les hommes de notre commission scolaire nous ont fait marcher avec des pancartes vers le petit édifice de la commission scolaire à côté de l'école Alderson, où les élèves de l'Aube sont venus nous rejoindre. L'important est de savoir que, parce qu'ici au Québec, là, quand on passe de l'Ouest, on pense au Manitoba. Alors moi, je veux vous faire remarquer, l'important, c'est de savoir que les réclamations étaient pour la scolarisation dans notre foi, contrairement au Manitoba, où la demande visait d'abord la langue française. C'est ainsi que le gouvernement de la Colombie-Britannique l'a compris et en a étendu les bénéfices aux écoles des autres dénominations religieuses de la province. Tout le monde en a profité.
I was born in Malarville in 42. I was baptized in St. Mary's Hospital because I wasn't supposed to live by an oblate, Father Murphy, from St. Peter's, and we belong to the St. Peter's Oblate Parish until the Fatima was started in, I think, 47. Okay. In the first year of the parish, we had grade 1 in the basement of the rectory on Alderson before the church. And because of the size, we were in the basement of the rectory for grade 1.
Okay.
And then in grade 2, we moved to the school. Right. With the Oblates from the very beginning, I was belonged to an Oblate parish, went to Oblate colleges in Gravelburg and St. John's. So my whole life has been with the Oblates. I was an altar boy for Father Minier, because he paid us if we served during the week a nickel a mass. And I served mass every morning at the convent for 3 years for the sisters who were next door. What I remember when I was thinking about this, Father Minier was quite strict with the altar servers, but at midnight mass, my brother and I, Ron, we served all 3 masses Christmas Eve, and he let us sit on our ankles, on our feet during the 3rd mass, which was for him a real break. I always enjoyed being part of the parish. I remember the bazaars that we used to hold, raise money to build a church. I always enjoyed that. I liked to play bingo with my mother. I was always in good friends with all of the pastors. I was very much impressed by Father Leduc, who I considered a very holy man. You would think that Father Labonte, who was the one who replaced Father Leduc when he died, was a great influence on me in terms of my vocation.
De pouvoir participer à cet enregistrement pour le 75e de la paroisse. Alors, je suis sœur Claudette Ledé. Je suis une sœur du bon pasteur de Québec. Il y a peut-être quelques-uns de mes anciens élèves qui vont me reconnaître plus sous le nom de sœur Sainte-Geneviève. C'est le nom que j'ai porté pendant une vingtaine d'années. Alors, quand j'enseignais à Fatima, c'est le nom que je portais. Alors, on m'a demandé de me retourner dans mes souvenirs pour parler des débuts de la paroisse. Alors, dans mon cas, en 1946, j'avais 6 ans. Donc, ceux qui font des mathématiques vont savoir tout de suite que j'ai 81 ans maintenant. Donc, j'avais 6 ans. Et je me souviens d'être allée à une messe à Alderson, parce qu'on dit toujours que dans les débuts de la paroisse, les messes se célébraient à la rue Alderson. Donc, je me souviens très bien, les gens, les hommes apportaient des bancs et tout. Là, on était assis sur des bancs bien cordés et on avait la messe. Maintenant, je vais parler un petit peu d'autres choses au début. Alors, moi, j'ai fait ma première année à Notre-Dame de Lourdes. Mais dès que mes parents ont su que la paroisse Notre-Dame de Fatima allait être fondée et qu'aussi il allait y avoir une école, mes parents m'ont inscrit évidemment pour l'école Notre-Dame de Fatima. Donc, j'ai fait ma deuxième année dans le bâtiment qui était l'église, la salle paroissiale, l'école et n'importe quelle autre chose dont nous avions besoin. Alors, j'ai commencé donc ma deuxième et puis, comme je disais, dans l'église et les murs se trouvaient dans l'entrée. Alors, c'était des murs qui nous cachaient une classe de l'autre, mais c'était seulement des partitions de bois. Et évidemment, il y avait un brouhaha là-dedans. Alors, je pense, à chaque fois que j'y pense, je plains les pauvres sœurs qui essayaient d'enseigner. Et même, je pense que nous avions une classe à côté de l'autre dans une des partitions. En tous les cas, j'ai fait ma deuxième année. Par la suite, l'école a été construite. Alors, j'ai toujours continué à aller à l'école de Fatima.
Allô?
Allô, sœur Alice?
Oui.
Bonjour.
Bonjour. Je suis arrivée à Mayersville le 22 août 1968 avec sœur Thérèse Michaud, notre animatrice, et Suzanne Baron pour 3 ans. Elles sont restées toutes les 2-3 ans, mais moi, je suis restée une douzaine d'années.
Il y a 53 ans, exactement, avec 2 autres de mes compagnes, j'arrivais à Notre-Dame de Fatima, Maillardville. C'était le 22 août 1968. Le père Guy Michaud, au Blas de Marie Immaculée, et le frère Gérard Dussault, au Blas de Marie également, nous conduisirent au 830 de l'avenue Quadling. Quel pays, me suis-je exclamé en descendant de l'avion. J'allais faire connaissance avec de nouveaux paroissiens. Pour moi, la paroisse fut toujours une grande famille.
I'm Leanne Bruneau, originally Ducharme, and I was born into Our Lady of Fatima Parish in March of 1962.
And I'm Dennis. I was born into the parish in 61.
And then my family moved to St. Michael's Parish when I was 4 years old. But I always felt a strong connection to Our Lady of Fatima. My grandparents were there, my aunts, my uncles, my parents' friends. We would, go to Mass there from time to time with my grandparents. And then when we got married at St. Michael's, had a reception at Fatima, and coming back to Fatima just felt like coming back to the family home.
Mm-hmm. So I have a very boring, I was born into the parish and stayed there all my life. I went through the Our Lady of Fatima school and then went on to the seminary and mission. But it's always been my parish. And really, apart from being imprudent, have been constant there and constant resident of the area.
My name is Father Greg Scott. Originally, I'm from New Brunswick. A very, very small little place in the parish of Marie-Anne, Mary Queen. Grew up there, left there when I was in my early 20s, moved to Montreal, finished high school in Montreal, and then joined the RCMP. Mm-hmm. I stayed there for 6 years in the RCMP, and then I got transferred out here to Vancouver. Worked for 3 more years, I think. I think it was 3 more years. Long story, but eventually went to the seminary. I went to the seminary, the Beta College in Rome. I was ordained in 1982. And this is where my first assignment, in fact, was here at St. Anthony's in West Van. under the pastorship of Father Malin, who was a wonderful, wonderful man. So my first 5 years were here. And then in 1987, I was transferred to Our Lady of Fatima in Coquitlam. Now, Our Lady of Fatima had been founded and always served by the Oblates of Mary Immaculate. And so they had to pull out of Our Lady of Fatima. The pastor was brought back to Edmonton, I believe. And because I was the only French-speaking priest at the time, the only French-speaking priest in Vancouver, all of my French was iffy, but it had to do. So that's why I was transferred to Our Lady of Fatima.
My name is Father Patrick T. Fortin, and I worked at St. Joseph's Port Moody as pastor for 1 year before I became pastor of Our Lady of Fatima in 1998. As I was doing a French degree at the time at SFU, the Archbishop sent me to replace Father Craig Scott when he left to go to Saint-Sacrement for 1 year, and then in the following year he started St. Clair's Parish. So it was a huge challenge to live up to Father Scott's persona and his incredible style, but things seemed to work out well once I got sort of in the groove.
I want to describe what it's like to arrive in Fatima. Imagine a great big blender and you throw in all these cultures. So then you put the blender on high and it goes at 100 miles an hour. The French community, the English community, the Chinese community, the Filipino community, the Korean community, the Latino, and we cannot forget the Italians who had their little involvement here over the years. Let's talk about the French. Le Scoutisme. Where would Fatima have been without the founding of the French Scouting movement? We had this wonderful movement for our youth from the Scouting movement. Who formed? Our current mayor of Coquitlam, Mayor Richard Stewart. We have here the beginnings on this site, Le Festival du Bois, the largest cultural festival in BC, started here.
St. Father Xavier the Pastor, Father Aloysius Low, and bought the house, this house. That's why I stay in here and live in here, help Father T. Borton to teach outside a program. Father T. Borton sometimes love Chinese food.
I am Sister Monica Leung. 1989年9月10日嚟花地瑪聖堂，係因為啲修女叫我嚟啊嘛，叫我嚟幫手啊嘛。
I came from south of China, very close to Hong Kong. It's mainland China. I lived in a small village, but my grandpa brought me to the church this Sunday. But in China, that time it's not open yet. So I can't have the faith life in China at that time. When I was a child, he always talked the Bible story. When I came here, and then Fatima already have a Chinese mass once a month. That time, enjoy the Chinese mass and the choir. I love to sing. It's 2007. I came here in April.
Je suis ici à Fatima normalement il y a 10 ans passés. Mais avant cela, j'étais en mission à Cape Town, en Afrique du Sud, pour aider nos confrères prémontrés à Comité. Comité, c'est un petit village là-bas, en Afrique du Sud, où s'est implanté les prémontrés. Alors, après 8 ans, je suis allé en Belgique pour mon année sabbatique. Donc, vous comprenez que quand un prêtre travaille pendant 10 ans, il a besoin de se reposer, se ressourcer pour une année. C'est ce qu'on appelle l'année sabbatique. L'abbaye qui m'avait offert ces privilèges, c'est l'abbaye qui a fondé notre communauté de l'Afrique du Sud. Là. Donc, alors, je suis allé à Greenbergen pour une année sabbatique et c'est à peu près 8 mois. Je n'ai pas terminé toute une année, mais à 8 mois, j'étais appelé ici au Canada pour servir Notre-Dame de Fatima. Le diacre Guy prenait sa retraite. Alors l'archidiocèse cherchait quelqu'un pour le remplacer. Et c'est bien tombé quand j'avais demandé, parce que je voulais, moi, personnellement, vivre dans un pays où on parle l'anglais et le français, parce que j'avais appris un peu d'anglais en Afrique du Sud. Alors, je voulais garder cet anglais-là. Et j'ai dit à mon supérieur que je voulais travailler dans un pays où on parle, un pays bilingue, en fait, où on parle l'anglais et le français.
Alors,
c'est la raison pour laquelle je suis ici. J'ai rejoint cette belle communauté de Fatima.
Patrick Chisholm, and I was the pastor at Our Lady of Fatima between 2011 and 2018.
I'm Deacon Peter Gomez, and I came originally from Sri Lanka, and I came to New Westminster. Our Lady of Mercy, Burnaby, was my parish where I started. And after 7 years, that was in 2014, we came to Coquitlam. I bought this house, and that's how I became a parishioner of Our Lady of Fatima here.
Bonsoir, les frères Bruno. Bienvenue. Thank you so much for having the time to chat with me tonight. So, starting with Brother Joseph, please tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I was born into the parish at my baptism, July 10th, 1988, just a month after I was born. And I guess since then I have been a member of the parish until I formally left on my monastic profession on September the 8th, 2007.
Okay, we're going to move to your brother. And same question, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I'm Brother Bartholomew, and I was also born into the parish on April 15th, 1995, also just shortly after my birth. And like Brother Joseph, I was part of Fatima Parish until I joined the monastery in 2000, or made some confession, September 2nd, or September 8th, sorry, 2014, I think that's right.
Okay.
Yeah, my name is Brother John. And well, I won't say I was born to the parish at my baptism because my parents didn't get around to it till almost a year after I was born. So I joined the parish at my birth, July 5th, 1999. But I was baptized April 23rd in 2000. And yeah, I grew up with my siblings at Deux de Six Le Bleu until I came to the monastery after I graduated. And I'm still making my way to my solemn profession.
Hey, so you're in process.
Yes.
You're a work in process.
Oh, we all definitely
We
still
all
are. Yeah.
Bonjour, je m'appelle Nadine et je fais partie de la paroisse Notre-Dame de Fatima depuis avant que je suis née. Mes parents et mes grands-parents faisaient partie de cette paroisse. Alors, je suis née ici.
I am the second youngest of the Bruno family, Dennis and Leanne. I was the missionary baby born in Peru. And yeah, currently 3 of my brothers are in the monastery, and I was there as well. And I am currently serving on NET Canada, which is a youth ministry across Canada, and I'm currently in Whitehorse in the Yukon. I guess technically I wasn't born into it since I was born in Peru, but as soon as we got back from there a year later, grew up there my whole life and have been there ever since.
So I am Sister Olive Kingsbury, RVM, and RVM stands for Religious of the Virgin Mary. I'm originally from the Philippines and was born in one of the Tri-Cities there. And I have entered the congregation at a very young age, and it is a missionary congregation. We are contemplatives in action, and I was attracted to the congregation at a very young age, and so I have been in the congregation for quite some time. Oh, I joined Fatima Parish only last year, August 2020. As a missionary, being part of the missionary congregation, I was sent to serve the parish. As I would say, it's the bishop who asked the superiors to come to us, to come to this place. And I responded to the call, first of all, by obedience. I was asked to come. And so with I would say, coming from Edmonton, that is might be the reason why they have chosen me to be here, being acclimated and, to be in Canada for a while, for 3 years in Edmonton. I guess the adjustment would not really be as much as one who comes directly from the Philippines. And so I accepted the call or the assignment out of obedience and to answer a need at the moment. So that brought me here from Edmonton to Coquitlam. And I'm grateful for it.
L'exubérance, la joie de notre foi, concrétisée dans l'entraide mutuelle et la fraternité de notre culture francophone, ont marqué les débuts de la paroisse. Tout cela a directement influencé mon choix d'une vocation mariale quand je suis entrée dans la congrégation des Servantes du Cœur Immaculé de Marie, dite les Sœurs du Bon Pasteur de Québec. Cette communauté est venue à Fatima en 1952 et l'année suivante, je suis allée pensionnaire chez elle à Québec avant d'entrer comme postulante au mois d'août 1954. Je voulais à tout prix revenir œuvrer dans ma chère paroisse. J'avais compris qu'à l'époque, il n'y avait pas dans toute la Colombie-Britannique autant de prêtres, de frères et de sœurs que dans la seule ville de Montréal. Oui, c'était impératif pour moi de revenir rendre service chez nous. Bien, l'annonce de la visite de Notre-Dame-du-Cap a encore soulevé notre enthousiasme. Dans ma famille, une petite sœur attendue au mois de mai a même reçu le nom de Marie-Madeleine en l'honneur de la Vierge du Cap de la Madeleine à Québec. Pour l'occasion, une célébration toute spéciale a été créée par nos chères sœurs de l'Enfant Jésus. Ce serait un chapelet vivant dans l'Église. Les élèves de l'école tiendraient la place des grains du chapelet pour réciter à tour de rôle les prières, le credo, les Notre Père, je vous salue Marie, gloire soit au Père, sans oublier bien sûr le verset de Fatima, ô bon Jésus, pardonnez-nous nos péchés. À la fin du chapelet, il y aurait une consécration de la paroisse à la Sainte Vierge. Pour choisir la lectrice de cette consécration, Mère Irène, la supérieure, a fait tirer à la courte paille les filles de la 8e année et le sort est tombé sur moi. J'ai lu cette consécration avec toute la ferveur de ma jeunesse, vêtue d'une robe bleu ciel confectionnée par maman. Mais ce que je n'avais pas imaginé, c'est que la Sainte Vierge elle-même s'en mêlerait. Le soir, chez nous, émue aux larmes en regardant l'église par la fenêtre de ma chambre, J'ai senti que Marie m'invitait à la suivre dans une vocation religieuse et je lui ai répondu oui. Ce moment est resté gravé à jamais dans mon cœur. Oh oui, la belle fraternité. Même si personne parmi nous n'était riche, on nous parlait souvent des moins bien nantis en nous invitant à contribuer aux œuvres de la Société de Saint-Vincent-de-Paul. Ma famille elle-même en a bénéficié lorsque nous avons passé 1 an sans aucun revenu pendant la maladie de mon père. Peu après, mes parents ont voulu à leur tour aider d'autres personnes dans le besoin. Le Royal 22e Régiment de Québec, qu'on appelait les 22, était cantonné à Fort Lewis, Tacoma, Washington, pour de l'entraînement avant son départ à la guerre de Corée. Le commandant, ayant entendu parler des 2 paroisses francophones à Mayerville, a communiqué avec nos curés pour savoir si les soldats pouvaient s'y rendre en congé pendant la Semaine sainte et jusqu'à Pâques le 25 mars. Sans hésitation, le dimanche des Rameaux, nos curés ont invité les familles qui avaient de la place à accueillir un soldat ou 2 ou 3. Vous imaginez que nous avons vécu des jours saints autrement plus animés que d'habitude. Ma famille a gardé 2 soldats, dont l'un se nommait Clément, mon fils, je pense, et l'autre Roger Gauthier, tous les 2 de Montréal. Moi, je n'avais que 13 ans, malgré ma haute taille, mais les jeunes gens plus âgés ont fait la fête avec eux. Le plaisir de rencontrer ces braves gars du Québec n'était mitigé que par la perspective de leur départ pour la Corée le 19 avril suivant. Mais voilà que le vaste monde commençait à s'infiltrer dans notre petit village. L'intention de la paroisse, comme aussi de ma communauté, était d'ouvrir une école secondaire afin d'affermir la foi des jeunes filles et de promouvoir la culture francophone. À cette fin, ma communauté a fait construire un couvent-pensionnat en 1956-57. En septembre 1958, je suis venue enseigner dans les nouvelles classes du secondaire. Figurez-vous que je sortais moi-même de la 13e année pour enseigner là, sans aucune autre préparation. Ce fut tout un tour de force de préparer mes cours de semaine en semaine pour des étudiants qui avaient presque mon âge et surtout pour les préparer aux examens du gouvernement en 12e année. Quant au pensionnat, nous avons recruté très peu de Canadiennes françaises car leurs familles n'en avaient pas les moyens. Les autres filles venaient souvent de familles en difficulté et nous les avons aidées avec compassion dans l'esprit d'amour et de bonté de notre fondatrice, la vénérable mère Marie-Josette Fitzpatrick. Pour moi, ces années de 1958 à la fermeture de l'école secondaire pas longtemps après, en 1963, furent vraiment mes plus belles années auprès de la jeunesse.
I had to go to Vancouver College because I had been sick and I couldn't go. I had been going to Gravelberg and then I got sick, so I had to go to school in Vancouver. And after when I graduated, I was impressed. We had a seminarian from Mission who came down to speak to our high school class. And I decided then that I was going to go to Mission Seminary for the diocese. But I was refused for several reasons. I was too young. I graduated at 16, so I was too young to go to the seminary, and I had no Latin. From the time I was quite young, a lot of people said, well, he's going to make so a faire un bon prêtre, celui-là. You know, he's going to make a good priest. And I, as a teenager, I didn't like that. And so I intentionally didn't take Latin in high school, so I couldn't go to the seminary until mine was changed. So after that, then I went to St. John's College to take Latin. And again, being influenced by the Oblates, I decided to go to the Oblate Novitiate. I think that the parish has always been, I would say, home for me. I always felt very, very much at home in the parish and very close to the priest there. As I said, Father Labonte and others influenced me in my choice as I was growing up. So I think that, of course, my parents were most influential, and they were integrally involved in parish life. Their faith and their involvement in the parish. My mother was very, very involved in the life of the parish, and I found that supportive too.
Dire que j'ai toujours pensé que l'école faisait partie intime de la paroisse. J'ai toujours été très impressionnée par la générosité des paroissiens et des paroissiennes pour deux choses, conserver la foi, ou défendre la foi et conserver la langue. Et puis, mes professeurs, qui ont été les sœurs de l'Enfant Jésus et les sœurs du Bon Pasteur par la suite, ont toujours continué dans cette ligne. Donc, je vais revenir un peu au choix de ma vocation. Alors, là aussi, quand j'y pense, je suis un petit peu surprise moi-même parce que j'ai commencé à penser à la vie religieuse en première année. Une sœur qui m'enseignait, elle s'appelait Sœur Saint-Augustin. Et moi, j'avais 6 ans. Et quand je la regardais, je la trouvais vieille, mais je la trouvais bonne. Et là, je m'étais dit, un jour, je vais être une bonne vieille sœur comme elle. Mais est-ce que je suis bonne? Dans les années qui ont suivi, bien, la prière et l'exemple des sœurs qui m'enseignaient ont été un grand aide, évidemment, pour ma vocation. Et j'ai aussi enseigné 2 années avec les sœurs du Bon Pasteur, ce qui m'a permis de les connaître. Et finalement, c'est cette communauté que j'ai choisie. Et je suis entrée à l'âge de 19 ans. La vie paroissiale a aussi été, quand je parle de vie paroissiale, là, c'est vraiment la paroisse, ça a été très important pour moi. Parce que, comme je l'ai dit, j'ai toujours été émerveillée par la générosité de tous les gens qui ont participé à cette paroisse. Et c'était toujours la même chose, favoriser la paroisse, favoriser la défense de la foi et puis favoriser la langue. Alors, mes parents, comme bien d'autres, n'étaient pas riches, mais ils étaient toujours prêts à faire des sacrifices pour la paroisse et évidemment, ça voulait dire pour nous aussi. Alors, je me souviens encore, campagne de financement, les frais scolaires, les bazars, les bingos, les repas en plein air, les soirées amateurs et même une pièce de théâtre un soir, toujours dans le but de recueillir des fonds pour payer les nombreuses et très nombreuses dépenses.
J'étais jeune à l'école, en 7e année, j'avais Sœur Jeanne Dussault comme professeure. Elle m'a touchée jusqu'au fond des tripes par sa façon d'être et de savoir-faire. Sans m'en rendre compte, elle me guidait en faisant me découvrir à mon meilleur, me donnait des occasions d'offrir des services ici et là. Inconsciemment, le germe s'enracinait en moi. Je voulais suivre son modèle. Tout à coup, c'est venu clair en moi. Alice, suis-moi, me dit Jésus, et c'est là que Jeanne m'a dirigée vers la communauté Sainte-Croix. À Falaire, lorsqu'un professeur ne pouvant se rendre pour causes différentes, on me demandait d'aller en classe comme surveillante. Et un jour, c'était rendu au 4e élève qui venait me demander la même question. Alors, j'ai simplement dit aux élèves, bon, ça fait 4 qui viennent me demander la même question, alors je vais vous l'expliquer au tableau et vous n'aurez pas à venir à tour de rôle. Et sans le savoir, Sœur Jeanne était à ma porte et m'écoutait. Le soir, après le souper, elle me fait demander à son fils et me dit, Alice, you're a born teacher. Ah oui, alors c'est là qu'elle m'a envoyé à Maillardville enseigner là. Après 3 ans, le nombre d'élèves diminuait. Nous avons passé 2 classes aux écoles publiques d'Alderson, qui étaient juste l'autre bord de la rue de notre école.
Oui.
Il s'est arrêté pour m'écouter. La première chose qui arrive, il va voir la principale, lui demande si il peut envoyer de ses professeurs dans ma classe pour intérioriser des professeurs et leur apprendre comment enseigner, me disant que j'avais un talent naturel pour rejoindre les enfants et leur faire comprendre ce qu'ils avaient à apprendre. Moi, j'enseignais toujours la porte ouverte. Et puis la classe en face de moi, c'était une classe qu'on avait louée, on leur avait louée. Et c'était dans des écoles publiques, oui.
Wow, il était très impressionné avec tes méthodes.
Oui, puis avec mon enseignement. Alors, il a demandé au principal s'il ne pouvait pas envoyer ses professeurs dans ma classe pour apprendre à enseigner.
Wow, quelle valorisation pour toi.
Tu comprends que je me suis pas énervé avec ça. J'ai oublié qu'il était là, puis j'ai continué à enseigner à mes petits. De très bons rapports entre nous. Oui, nous étions comme une grande famille. Quel bon souvenir. Je n'ai que de la gratitude à proclamer, grâce à la paroisse de Fatima, qui a fait fleurir toute une vie. Les rapports entre paroissiens et nous étaient merveilleux et fleurissants. J'en chante encore mon Magnificat. Toute jeune encore, ayant grandi à Montréal, j'avais souvent le bonheur de m'asseoir dans le chœur avec les enfants de chœur pour une célébration quand une religieuse travaillait comme sacristaine ou décorait le sanctuaire. Je la trouvais donc chanceuse. Et puis un jour vint où se réveilla l'appel que j'avais reçu depuis mon enfance, être religieuse. Beaucoup de congrégations religieuses m'ouvraient leurs portes, mais je n'aimais pas me faire influencer. Un jour, une sœur de la Providence me dit « Voyez donc, quelle belle coiffe nous portons. » C'était justement ce qu'il ne fallait pas me dire. Où, Seigneur, me veux-tu pour te servir avec les dons dont tu m'as gratifié? Et puis chez les sœurs de Sainte-Croix, qui ont toujours pourvu à mon éducation, j'allais frapper. Ces femmes m'ont toujours impressionné par leurs dons sans compter au service de l'Église, des enfants, surtout les plus démunis. Et voilà, j'avais ma réponse. À l'âge de 18 ans, je me suis présentée et j'y suis encore après 70 ans de vie religieuse.
It's actually kind of sown in grade 2 when the Oblates of Mary Immaculate from Fatima came to St. Michael's and talked to us about Peru and their missionary experiences, and it really planted the seeds of desire to want to go to serve in a foreign country. And I'm sure as you've listened to my children, you've picked up that became very important in our vocation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and specifically on the married life, that wasn't really on my radar. But I would say that, again, through the elders, what I really appreciated looking back is even some of the correction or just some of the guidance that I received from so many of the parishioners, not to mention the fact that their example was really rooted in setting my life to follow Christ as they have done. It didn't seem to matter what was going on with some of the silliness that we may encounter in a parish. They stayed strong fast. And again, in the youth, at that time, as a youth, with the Oblates, Brother Dussault and Father Frappier and the priests and the religious that would pop into our home started to shape a wonderful idea of the grandness of the call of the vocation. Leo Doucette, we were talking about a moment ago, how his just his presence and his simplicity was really inspiring to take some kind of a role, whether as married people or even earlier on as a single person, to do something more from the parish.
And Dennis mentions our call to serve Christ, and really that's at the heart of the marriage vocation, is to serve Christ in the context of marriage and family life. So those seeds that were planted when I was in grade 2 by the Oblates, when we were engaged to be married, Leo Doucette, who'd been 30 years as a missionary in Peru, as a lay missionary, showed up at Fatima for a visit. And so we talked with him about our desire to go to the foreign missions, and he strongly encouraged us. We then met Leo again in 1991 when we went with 3 young children to Peru as volunteers. And it's really while we were living in Peru that it became really clear that our mission was not just Leanne or Dennis or Leanne and Dennis, but we had a family mission, that every family has a mission to live out. Most live that out in the context of their parish where they grew up. We were called to exceptional circumstances that deeply shaped and formed us and our family. So when I first heard about the foreign missions, it was more in the context of a religious vocation. Leo Doucette opened up that idea that lay people could also go serve in the missions without, becoming a religious.
When he would visit our home, he was friends with my grandfather. So when he would visit your family, he would also come and visit our family.
My parents spoke of him when I was a child.
It was one of the things that we were doing as we were dating is we were teaching CCD. I taught a little bit of CCD, and I didn't like to do it by myself, so I would ask friends to assist me. And a lot of these friends I met through the parish. And as I became close to even friends of my sisters, I began to see the possibility and the beauty of that. So it's interesting that I would meet my future wife and many people that I still really care about through the parish. Community is sometimes a little bit of a superficial thing. It's sort of like everybody that forms the Fatima parish is a community, but it is more than that. You begin to love the people that you see on Sundays, that you work with, that you interchange with, that you perhaps are involved in different groups. And I think that love is really the better and deeper definition of the community that we felt that we received from Fatima. It's like the other thing that we were talking about is the holy people. When I see the holy men and women, and it's not just the elders, it's those serving the parish in their very discreet ways over and over again, that really humbles me. And when I show up in my pew and I glance and I look at them, it gives me love. It's like I receive from them. That's worth returning for.
It was like 90% Catholic in that community, but a devout Catholic family, not strict, but devout. The priests were the fathers of La Salette. I attended school. It was a Catholic school again. The sisters of les filles de Marie de l'Assomption, the daughters of Our Lady of the Assumption, I believe. And so I wanted to be, I thought of the priesthood when I was actually about 6 years old. But many of us did, many of us were, because in the environment, thought of the priesthood, girls thought of the religious life. So I wanted to be a priest when I was about 6 years old. And that continued until I became a teenager, and then things shifted and changed. So after that long period of time from possibly the age of 16, 17 to the time I got out here, that idea of the priesthood was dormant, totally dormant. Like there was no way. But eventually it started slowly returning. And it got to the point where I thought, you know what, I have to visit this again. I have to think about it at least. And I sought out a priest here. And he kind of directed me to the point where I thought, well, I'll try. I don't know if I'm going to make it. In fact, I doubt it. But I have to try. I have to see. And so I was accepted, and that's where I was sent to Rome to the seminary. But going back to the beginning, I was greatly influenced by the community that I grew up in. The priests and the sisters made a deep impression on me and on my vocation, as well as my parents, of course. Yeah. I think that for me, the call was already there, but the priest and the nuns supported that call just by who they were. Over the course of time, we had many priests and many sisters. It wasn't one or two. It was just collectively. They made an impression on me.
I grew up in St. John the Apostle Parish in Vancouver, which is Kerrisdale. My dad and his brother, my uncle, were ushers, so I sat with my grandmother and my 4 siblings and my 3 cousins, because our mothers were not Catholic. So the cousins went to Mass with their fathers, and that's how we grew up. My grandmother was not very religious. Right before communion, she would say, "Here, have a search." Anyway, Kerrisdale Parish life was quiet and subdued. Seeing the faith of my father and my grandmother through the years of Mass attendance built a strong faith in me. However, it was in 1976, Father James O'Brien, our pastor, officiated at my sister's wedding and made me see the priesthood in a new light. My home parish did support me when I entered St. Peter's Seminary, University of Western Ontario, and I felt close to the parish and the parishioners, this particular parish of John the Apostle, although small, was very supportive of the Archdiocese and very generous.
I was born in a Buddhist family. Summertime I studied in the school, volunteer for all the children in Kowloon. Suddenly, Jesus called me, and I met her at the daycare in Kowloon. I said, I want to be like you, as a religious sister. Then I told my parents. My parents said, no, you cannot be a nun. I knelt down all day long, and I told my brother, my elder brother, said, doesn't matter, Mommy, Daddy not allow you, I can allow you. Then my brother gave me $600 and bring my case and walk with me to my convent. 18 years old. That's what I entered the convent in Kowloon.
因為以前我喺嘉羅實修女嗰度，啲嘉羅實修女就影響我啦。有個嘉羅實修女成日叫我，佢好中意我做修女，成日叫我做修女啊。以前我喺嘉羅實修女嗰度，啲嘉羅實修女就影響我啦。有個嘉羅實修女成日叫我，佢好中意我做修女，成日叫我做修女啊。Mother Victoria 係啊，佢一路都佢好錫我啦。佢病啊，喺醫院我都去。
Yeah, that time I was around 8-9 years old. I saw the sister and fathers serve the parish and very hard because that time no money, no place, only one small house. So the mass only in the living room. So that time, I remember only few people can join the mass. Not limited because some people scared the government. After maybe few years, the government opened some place for our that after maybe almost 10 years, and the government suddenly gave the church back to the our parish. So my grandpa and the other parishioner, they so happy and came together and helped to the church. I saw they work hard and they serve local people. The old people, doesn't matter the student or the old people, they invite to the church. And that time, some students, because the father know English, so he just volunteered to give the place to the student. They can live in the church. They are learning English. No, that time no school, only the summer program. Yes, they just like God calling that the student come back to church.
Je voulais tout d'abord dire que moi, j'ai reçu ma vocation quand j'avais 10 ans. Et vous pouvez déjà comprendre que j'étais un petit enfant. Alors, c'était quand j'avais reçu ma première communion. Nous rencontrons Dieu aussi dans les sacrements. Il nous appelle dans ces sacrements aussi. Encore par les sacrements de confirmation. Donc, j'ai vraiment eu cet appel de servir Dieu dans ma vie. À partir de la personne du prêtre lui-même, le curé de notre paroisse, le père Chauvin, était vraiment un modèle, un exemple vraiment que nous devons, qui a attiré beaucoup de gens en fait. Et je me suis présenté chez lui, j'ai dit voilà, je vais devenir comme vous. C'était le départ. Je vais devenir prêtre comme vous. Il m'a dit, mais toi, tu es encore trop jeune pour devenir prêtre. Alors, ce que tu pourras faire, c'est de venir de temps à autre à la paroisse, voir ce que nous faisons, et vous pouvez m'aider en tout ce que je fais. Donc, ça peut vous donner l'idée de ce que devenir prêtre. Et de temps à autre, il m'a donné des petits travaux à faire. Et j'étais très heureux de collaborer avec lui. J'ai quitté le milieu, j'ai déplacé pour les études. Et comme la vocation est un peu étrange, donc c'était parti, je ne sentais plus rien. Et après, c'est revenu encore pour la deuxième fois quand j'étais à l'université, qui est à 500 km de la capitale, Kinshasa. Et je suis allé à la capitale pour faire l'université. Je faisais les mathématiques à l'université. Et c'était tout simplement pendant une année. Et j'étais vraiment dérangé par ma vocation, tellement que je voyais le monastère en bas, notre communauté. J'ai dit non, je dois aller là-bas me faire membre. Je vais étudier chez le prêtre. Mais quand je suis descendu au monastère pour leur dire que je voulais bien vivre avec vous, le rendez-vous avec le supérieur et parler avec lui et voir, lui poser, disons, mon problème et voir comment il va réagir. Mais tout cela s'est passé d'une manière, je dis que c'est Dieu lui-même qui ouvrait toutes les portes là. Bien accueilli, on a bien parlé, il dit oui, je vous accueille, venez de temps à autre à la communauté et voyez comment nous vivons ici. Et ça peut vous donner une idée. Si tu es content de cette vie, alors tu peux la commencer avec nous. C'était ça mon discernement. Et j'avais beaucoup aimé ça. Je partais faire peut-être 2 ou 3 semaines avec les prémontrés. J'ai travaillé avec eux, j'ai prié avec eux. Et ça m'a vraiment donné cette envie de servir Dieu. Oui, après 2 ans, ils m'ont appelé pour commencer ma vie religieuse. Et nous avons commencé notre postulat à 7. On était 7 candidats et nous avons terminé notre formation à 2. C'est rigoureux. Alors, quand on est là, on observe la communauté et la communauté nous observe. S'ils n'êtes pas capable, alors ils peuvent vous demander de repartir à la maison. On a terminé à 2, comme j'ai dit, et la formation a pris 11 années.
11.
Ils ont fait le postulat, le noviciat, et après le noviciat, on nous envoie aux études 3 ans de philosophie, et après ces 3 ans de philosophie, nous avons 1 année de stage. On peut vous amener n'importe où pour travailler pendant 1 année, avoir un peu l'expérience du travail. Et après cela, on a fait les études théologiques. Donc, il y a 2 volets. Il y a certains qui partent pour faire 4 ans de théologie et on envoie d'autres pour faire 5 ans de théologie. Moi, je suis allé à l'université catholique pour faire 5 ans de théologie et j'ai fait la théologie pastorale. 1998. Donc, diacre d'abord. Et après 6 mois, on m'a ordonné prêtre. Je suis devenu diacre. J'étais encore étudiant. Donc, je servais à la communauté, pas encore en paroisse. On ne m'a pas donné même une paroisse. Quand j'ai été ordonné prêtre, on m'a nommé recteur. J'ai travaillé à la formation des jeunes. 4 ans en tant que recteur parce que nous avons 2 communautés à Kinshasa. Il y a la communauté des postulants et la grande communauté. Alors, on m'a nommé recteur à la communauté des postulants. Donc, et après, on m'a envoyé en mission en Afrique du Sud. Moi, ma vocation, je pense que c'était... ce n'est pas une jeune vocation parce que j'ai reçu ma vocation. Oui, jeune, oui, mais j'étais ordonné prêtre quand j'avais 33 ans. Donc, j'étais déjà vieux.
I grew up in Calgary, Alberta, and we attended Sacred Heart Parish. My parents were very active in the church, and so I became active because they were active. And I think having the pastor come over for dinner and talking to him and realizing he's a real person, or he played hockey, he did different things. And I think that influenced me. Also, my uncle was a Jesuit. I didn't really know him closely. I was out of town, but that also influenced my desire to become a priest. My grandmother grew up in Cape Breton, and her little church, St. Margaret of Scotland, Broad Cove, was considered a priest factory for the Diocese of Antigonish. A lot of priests came out of that little parish.
Actually, from my young days as a youth, I joined the Charismatic Renewal, and that is where I really started having a strong the encounter with Jesus. And I would say that has totally changed my life as a youth, even before I came to Canada. And even after I came, I was looking for a prayer meeting to join. And I found Mustard Seed Prayer Group, which is at Our Lady of Mercy. And also, when I came here, I joined our prayer group here. On every Wednesday they met. Likewise, I've been a very active member of the Charismatic Renewal, and I would say that is one reason why I was looking to serve the Lord in a deeper, with a commitment. And that I would say would have given me some influence to become a deacon. Actually, my father introduced me to the charismatic renewal when I was just 15. And immediately I was looking to change the world. I was looking for a change. And I really got very, very good, the background of I learned my theology background at that time. And it gave me the retreats that I participated, gave me clear answers to all my questions that I had about my faith. And also I had a very strong encounter with Jesus, the practical encounters with Jesus. And yeah, that has completely changed my life thereafter.
Well, I think I'm a little bit different than my brothers here in some of the experiences I had. And I think the first experience that I had relating to the parish, but yet not in the parish, was when the parish supported my family when we went to do missionary work in Peru. I was 3.5 years old the first time we left for Peru, and the parish supported us very generously. And I would credit that to the beginnings of my vocation, being on mission, a sense of mission that I was not consciously developing, but that came very naturally, that just sort of became the air you breathe, so that when eventually God called me to a new mission, it didn't seem out of place. It was just, all right, this is part of living in the church. A logical progression of just development in vocation. I guess another significant step in that vocational discernment was when I decided to enter the Seminary of Christ the King in high school, grade 8, which was something my father had done, and actually several young men from the parish had done at the same time as my father. So again, it didn't seem like something extraordinary to leave home and to follow a potential call from God. And so once I was here, I eventually came to understand more deeply what vocation is and how it functions, so that when I finished grade 12, it was a natural step to enter the community. Also from that standpoint, one of the things that here I see coming from the parish, so whereas our time in Peru, I was very aware of the financial support that the parish gave, after I joined the seminary, even though I was only in high school, I was aware that there were several of the elders and maybe some of the younger ones that were very dedicatedly praying for my vocation. I know they hoped that I'd come back as a parish priest for the French Mass and all, but all the same, I think they were praying in a spirit of openness for my vocation and my discernment. And to this day, I'm thankful for that. And I'm aware that though many of these seniors have passed on to the Lord, they're still supporting me with that prayer. My parents were very intentional in not just making our life in faith the thing everyone does. So if it was going to be seen as, well, everyone does this, so therefore we do it, they were trying to avoid that. So one example of that was for my first communion, my parents very deliberately made sure that we weren't going to be part of the big procession. They wanted us to not just see all these people that we only saw there for their first communion because they had been in the CCD with us, but then we never saw any other time. So that was a discrepancy so they wanted us to have an authentic experience of faith. And I think that's where you see the day-to-day, them trying to give us that authentic expression. And I saw that when we went to Mass every Sunday, we had that. It was always the same people, the same community. And that regularity was definitely a witness that speaks to me. I still use the hymns and songs that were present in the parish as part of my prayer.
I did have a different experience from Brother Joseph, being 7 years younger. I came more or less after the Peru experience. I was only 3 by the time the second trip came along, and I don't remember much about that. But I still think that what Brother just spoke of still rings true in the sense that it shaped the way our family lived. And so in that way, it shaped the way I approach reality within my family. So I think my response would very much be what the parish supported is what ended up shaping the family. So one of the things for me, I think what really assisted me most, I'd say would actually be the French Scout movement, founded by Jean Lambert for the parish youth. That was his mission, and it's reached me. And I think having spent more time in it than any of my other brothers, because I came to the seminary later, it really impacted me very deeply. I think one of the key sort of graces of it was coming from the parish. It was rooted in the Christian faith, the church, but yet not strictly being a church institution. It naturally tied back to my daily life. And so it taught me that, my faith at Mass is the way I live out in the world. And so to me, it tied both those experiences beautifully together. And so I remember I'd often I'd see Jean Lambert every day at Mass. If I went during the week, if I went on Sunday, he was there every day. And so that same man, I would then go and work at his house and mow his lawn, and to see that the faith that is practiced at Mass is lived outside. And to me, that was a great grace, just learning how to live in community through that scouting movement, I think really helped a great deal. And so when I came to the seminary, when we're living in community often and playing with boys and doing what young men do to grow, it came very naturally that I had already learned a lot of these things throughout the scouting movement, it being so closely tied to my faith. Mm-hmm. A lot of my prayers come from the scouting movement, even the prayers, right? I still sing my promesse scout, which is really, it's a prayer.
A few things I think about that involve the parish and development of my vocation. Remember in grade 3, I decided to altar serve. I wanted to be more attentive and more part of Mass because I'm young, distracted, just naturally. That I appreciated being able to be kind of at the heart of the Mass and do things other than just sit in the pew. I remember serving daily Mass for a number of years, and that was very nice. Especially I appreciated the support and the encouragement and the enthusiasm some of the parishioners have. I think the sacristans, they're very happy to have somebody do the altar serving. But then after a while, I started not liking the attention. I wanted to just not be noticed. We were being remarked to be the one only young person coming to daily Mass. And so my brother Paul and I, we started going to Lourdes to avoid attention. Well, partly was they had an earlier Mass and we were appreciating getting up earlier. Yeah, scouting, the scout movement was very much part of, when I think of who is my parish or what was my parish, I don't think of my parish too much as all the 800 families or so Fatima has, but really as those that went to the 9 o'clock morning Mass, the French Mass, or the 9 o'clock Mass, because those that see in the weekdays, I knew better. Many people I knew or I'd been to their houses, like Jean Lambert, Daniel Roy, Stella, just to name a few. But these are people that I could recognize, and maybe I had never really talked to them, but I knew where they sat in church, and I knew that obviously they cared about me because they would be happy to see me. And yeah, I would think they'd pray for me. Yet I see more and more that the community was the parish, those that were registered in the parish, but it was those that were part of the scouting movement. And then I started to see that many of those that were part of the scouting movement were from the same school I went to. The Festival du Bois would be another time we'd see kind of the same community gather. I think really my vocation came from God, and really He's the one who gives it to us. And really, my parents, my family is really where it got nurtured and where it germinated. I'm very grateful for Our Lady of Fatima for being, when I was growing up, as I saw it, a solid parish, a solid community that was able to support me, and especially the graces through the Mass. The figure that stands out the most for me is Father Teeporton, because he joined the parish right when I was born. He baptized me and he stayed there for 12 years. So yeah, that meant a lot, have him as my pastor.
One of my first memories about vocation is I knew I was called to be a saint, and I've known that was my vocation for a long time, and I guess that's what I'm living out right now. So how did the parish influence that? One of the first things was when my brother became an altar server. I was really young, and in my little brain, him becoming an altar server and wearing a white robe meant that he was becoming a saint. So that was very exciting for me. And yeah, that's my first memory of really knowing that that's what my brother was called to and that's what I was called to. Of course, I quickly found out he did not automatically become a saint when he wore that white alb. But I still knew that he was a saint in the making and that I was called to that as well. Later, when I became old enough to become an altar server, he encouraged me to do it because I didn't want to. I was too scared and shy. But his encouragement taught me, I think, 3 things about my vocation, about my calling to be a saint, in what he taught me about becoming an altar server. Well, first off, I learned that wearing that white alb doesn't make you a saint. So it's not about the exterior appearances. In French, we say l'habit ne fait pas le moine. It's not the habit that makes the monk. It's more than that. So I learned that vocation wasn't just about the exterior, but the wedding dress or the habit or whatever it might be, that there's something internal about our calling. And I think that's been very important. The second thing I learned was that it's not a performance. Because I was very shy, I didn't want to be an altar server, but my brother assured me that no one would be watching, no one would care if I messed up or not. It wasn't a show. It was about serving. And yeah, that's what being a saint, that's what being called by God is about. And the last thing it taught me was that I'm called too, because I think sometimes I've looked a lot at my brothers and thought that they had a vocation because they became monks. They have a habit. It's very obvious. And it's been harder to see that I'm also called, but my brother's encouragement, and not only to become an altar server, but he continued that throughout to encourage me to keep following God, that God keeps calling me every day. So that was very important, I think, for me. I think another thing that influenced my vocation would be my family's trip to Peru, which was sponsored by the parish and supported by the parish. I was a little kid when we went. I was 11 months old the first time. And being a young child on this missionary trip, Mom had always said that if her and her husband, if they were called to be missionaries, their kids were also called, that it was a family calling. So she saw us little children as missionaries too. As a young child missionary, what did I have to give to anyone? Not much. I just had myself to give. However, I received so much when I was there from the people we lived with. And I think if you ask any missionary, even adults, they'll tell you the same thing. My parents will tell you the same thing. They received so much more from the people they served than anything they ever gave them. And yet I was literally fed, clothed, sheltered by these poor people. So I think that really influenced my perspective of vocation and mission. It's not really about what I give, but also what is it that I give it's myself. If my mom thought a little kid was so important and had a vocation to be a missionary and they literally have nothing to give but themselves, then maybe it holds true when I'm an adult, that it's just being me in the world and giving myself in the world, and that's my mission. The liturgy and sacraments, and especially the Mass, the church. I'm a very visual person, and I was very visual and imaginative as a kid. So I think I learned a lot by what I saw. And a lot of what I saw was in the church during Mass. So as a kid, I learned that the Mass that we celebrate on earth is a participation in the heavenly Mass, and the high ceiling that we have here at Our Lady of Fatima helped me to visualize that reality, that in this huge space, there's all the angels and saints present with us at this Mass. The whole wall of stained glass windows where the light would shine through, especially on a nice Sunday morning, and just flooded the whole church. Like, that helped me visualize the glory of heaven, helped kind of make these truths a little more tangible to me as a little kid. And still today, I learned that of the presence of Jesus in the Eucharist, and that he is the main reason, the source of our faith, and seeing that beautiful backdrop every Sunday behind the tabernacle, seeing the cross, the sign of our salvation, like the kind of central parts of my faith being given such central focal point, like that reinforced that truth for me, and really inspired me. I found all of it very beautiful. And I think that helped inspire and influence my faith, and also it supports and strengthens it today.
The biggest thing I received from the parish is just the example of the community as a whole in nurturing my faith. Going to Sunday Mass, and then eventually as I got older with my parents going to daily Mass, just seeing the faith of those that are there, seeing their dedication, their faithfulness, their regularity, and seeing that this is not just something that's optional, but that this is something very important and vital, something that they value and that I should value as well. And I am very much the type of guy that watches and learns. So seeing these big examples, these people that formed the parish, sticking to it, following through with it, and being faithful, is just like that steady rock presence I want to follow and copy.
At a very young age, I was involved in parish activities. I started teaching little kids in 4th grade when I was asked by the parish priest to help teach little kids simple prayers. That was my background as a catechist. And eventually that developed as a profession. I was an educator. After several years in school, I opted to be in pastoral work. And so I think that is where it came from. As a young child, I was already involved in parish activities, processions, and I was always devoted to the Blessed Mother. And would you believe that my devotion before was really Our Lady of Fatima? That's why May is very significant for me. Every day we would offer roses to the Blessed Mother after praying the Rosary. And at the last day of May, we crowned the Blessed Mother, and it's Our Lady of Fatima. And so I was so glad and said, I'm going to a parish named Our Lady of Fatima. Coincidence or God's providence? Our Lady of Fatima was founded in 1946, right? And it is the same month that I was born, November 1946. And who would ever come up to this place after 75 years celebrating the Jubilee of the parish? At the same time, I will also be celebrating my 75th year. It's really God's providence.
Si le portrait que je viens de peindre de notre vie paroissiale à Notre-Dame de Fatima il y a 75 ans semble un peu idéaliste, même idyllique, Elle n'était pas sans difficulté et souffrance, loin de là. Mais on pourrait dire que c'était comme le temps d'une paix entre la Deuxième Guerre et les grands bouleversements que le monde a connus depuis lors. Cette petite vie nous a donné la force et la conviction que le bon Dieu reste le grand maître et qu'avec la Vierge notre Mère, il nous accompagne partout et toujours. Alors, je veux dire un grand merci de m'avoir invité à participer ainsi aux fêtes du 75e de ma paroisse bien-aimée, Notre-Dame de Fatima Mayerville, avec vous tous. Mes félicitations chaleureuses. Je vous garde toujours dans mon cœur et ma prière avec beaucoup d'affection.
In the beginning, most of my support came from the Oblate community, particularly in my last parish in Salmon Arm. I was there 17 years, and it was the most supportive parish I'd ever been in. It was a very active and enjoyable parish. I think their willingness to be involved in the parish life, they were always very responsive when I developed any programs, and the commitment of the laity was very strong there, and that was very encouraging.
Alors, je vais commencer au fil des années. La vie liturgique de la paroisse m'a vraiment aidée. Alors, vie liturgique dans le sens que le dimanche, genre de devoir, je ne sais trop, de connaître tous les paroissiens qui venaient à l'église. Et puis, ça a aidé à me sentir unie à eux, puis à elles. Alors, il y avait des personnes plus âgées, des personnes plus jeunes, en tout cas de toutes les catégories, puis aussi un petit peu de tous les, moi je dirais un peu niveaux sociaux, là. Je m'intéressais à ça. Et puis, en y pensant aussi, bien, je me suis dit, étant jeune fille, bien, je regardais aussi la mode de certaines demoiselles qui arrivaient toujours très, très, très bien vêtues. Alors, ça ajoutait à l'intérêt de mes dimanches. Sur semaine, bien, j'aimais aussi beaucoup aller à la messe. Et là aussi, ça faisait comme un genre de petite communauté. Et c'est alors que j'ai rencontré une vieille dame qui finalement était notre voisine. Et j'aimais beaucoup marcher à la messe avec elle et c'était un petit peu comme si c'était ma grand-mère. Alors là aussi, ça créait quelque chose de spécial. Et puis, j'ai pas mentionné, là, mais notre fameux premier curé, le père Meunier, il m'intimidait un petit peu, mais en même temps, il était tellement dynamique et puis il y avait tellement de fougue et puis d'audace. Alors ça me influençait. La vie liturgique de la paroisse, bien, il y avait les fameux chapelets et saluts du Saint-Sacrement. Autrement dit, le mois de Marie au mois de mai et puis le mois du Rosaire au mois d'octobre. Alors nous, notre famille, nous avions la chance de demeurer presque à 5-6 minutes de l'église. Alors c'était assez facile de se rendre. Mais quand même, j'aimais ça. J'allais par goût. Et ce que j'aimais surtout, c'est quand le chapelet se disait autour de la grotte de Notre-Dame de Fatima. Alors là, je m'imaginais que j'étais Lucie et puis je regardais la Vierge et je priais. Bon, c'était quelque chose d'enfant, mais quand même, je pense que c'est resté avec moi. Maintenant, moi, j'ai vécu, comme bien d'autres, la fameuse grève. Alors, ça a quand même joué, peut-être pas directement dans le choix de ma vocation, mais ça m'ouvrait d'autres perspectives. Et puis là, je disais, ben, tu sais, les gens ont une autre manière de vivre, ont d'autres croyances, d'autres valeurs et tout. Mais à travers tout ça, quand même, cette idée restait toujours qu'un jour, je serai une bonne vieille sœur. Une autre chose qui a été importante pour moi, c'est qu'en vieillissant, bien, il y avait la fameuse CYO, Catholic Youth Organization. Donc, je participais beaucoup à ces activités. Et puis, il y avait aussi ce qu'on appelait la relève colombienne. Alors ça, c'était plutôt pour les francophones. Et c'était les 3 paroisses, les jeunes de 3 paroisses qui participaient. Mais il reste que ça avait commencé quand même avec la paroisse. Et puis, j'ai bien apprécié passer dans ces activités. Alors, si je résume un peu, eh bien, je pourrais dire que je réalise quand même que la paroisse a eu une grande influence dans ma jeunesse. Et puis, l'école aussi, très évidemment. Comme je disais, il y avait des sœurs qui étaient là. Alors, puis les professeurs laïcs aussi qui étaient excellents. On rencontrait, comme je disais, des gens de tous les âges, de tous les niveaux. On rencontrait des gens des différents États. Évidemment, nous avions les prêtres. Plus tard, on a eu les frères Oblats.
Oui.
Il y avait aussi les sœurs. Ensuite, des personnes mariées, des personnes célibataires. Bon, alors tout ce monde créait ce qu'on dirait aujourd'hui ce lieu d'appartenance. C'est le mot à la mode maintenant, le lieu d'appartenance. Alors, j'ai toujours trouvé que je faisais partie de la communauté. Plus tard, je suis revenue religieuse. Évidemment, je faisais encore partie de la paroisse. Une fois partie, bien, chaque fois que je revenais chez mes parents, bien évidemment, on retournait toujours à l'église. Alors, c'était un plaisir de reconnaître et de retrouver les personnes que j'avais connues. Alors, ensuite, bien, maintenant, je suis dans le sens de suivre beaucoup le site de la paroisse. Alors, presque tous les jours, je vais voir quand même un petit peu ce qui se passe. Donc, ça me garde en lien avec la paroisse. Alors, tout ce que je peux dire en conclusion, c'est heureux 75e. Et j'ai bien hâte de tout voir ce que vous avez préparé, même si c'est de...
The single most important thing was the welcome, especially when the noisy, fussy, messy, all over the place babies and kids started coming. As a young mother, I'm sure you've experienced it. The temptation is there, like, why am I putting myself and my kids through this? Because I'm just getting angry. And but there was always those older parishioners with their big smiles, and it's telling me that it gave them joy to see my kid under the seat or across the church or make a noise, and that welcome was so important, because my kids then wanted to be there, which made it easier for me to be there. And my kids were still there when they were old enough to understand why they were there. So that's for me the key thing, but there's other ways that they did support us too. Certainly having opportunities as a couple, as a family, to participate in various parish programs, the parish survey, the scouting movement, teaching prep, sacristan. We've had different ways that we could serve as a couple. But most significant after the welcome was when we were called to go to serve in Peru, we needed a sponsor. And our parish did sponsor us. They gave us a small monthly stipend to support us while we were in Peru. But not only that, they took interest. They wanted to know what we were doing. They wanted to hear about it. So we had somebody keeping a bulletin board up to date with pictures and things that we were doing. They sent things down to us, like tangible things that they asked, how can we help what you're doing there? And I think that reflects the missionary heart of Our Lady of Fatima. I think it's always been a missionary parish at heart.
You got to be authentic. Doesn't mean you have to be perfect, but don't try to BS your way through Catholicism. It's either you're with it or you want. And if there's something not right, your children's going to pick it up. You just got to work on the families and help them. It's tough.
Let the children come.
Because I think children too, young people can read through the unauthentic stuff, like the stuff that's really not deep, and that doesn't attract them. That doesn't build up a faith in our Lord.
This was my first seminary in terms of learning how to be a priest. I tell you the truth, I didn't learn that much in the institution of the seminary, but I learned here under the amazing leadership and mentorship of Father Mallon, Peter Mallon, who eventually later became the Archbishop of Regina. He was a wonderful, wonderful, saintly man, very wise man. So he taught me. And then, of course, again, the community. That's when I learned, okay, this is I knew I wanted to be a priest. I was a priest. But the parish taught me why. I finally found out why I want to be a priest. Because that was a question all through the discernment process that I had to ask myself, why do you want to do this? And I never did come up with an answer until I started. And then once I started with the people, then I understood why I want to be a priest. I didn't go through the same way God pushed and pulled me through. Okay. But anyway, the fact is I became a priest. That was God's decision more than mine. But again, like serving the people, it was a mutual thing. I served them, but they certainly served me as well. And that's what, to me, that's what the church is. And that's what community is all about. And it was a wonderful place to start. It was almost like the nursery of my vocation. I have so many memories of Our Lady of Fatima, and not so much now, but every now and then I've gone back for funerals or very special occasions. And when I sit there, all these memories keep coming back, and I can see everybody, like especially the senior parishioners. They were the founders. They were the ones that began the parish, and the vast amount of wisdom that they had and knowledge about the parish itself. So I have a mind full of memories. It was challenging because I had never been a pastor before. I didn't know what to do. I was just told, okay, go in. All I was told about the whole thing was, all right, you go in there. It's a bilingual parish. And if there's only one French person, you make sure that you have Mass in French, even if there's only one French person left. And so that's all I was told. Go to it. I had never been a pastor. I had no idea what I was doing. But so that was a challenge. The other challenge is that, don't forget, I was the first diocesan priest in the parish. The people had grown up with the oblates. They knew the oblates. I mean, it was like a family already. And it had been, although it had been a bilingual parish, it was really steeped in the French culture. And so here I come with a name like Scott, and not an oblate. It didn't take that long before they let me know that I was.
Oh yeah, I'm hoping, because from my recollections, as soon as we heard you speak French, and it was a bit rusty. I will say, like most of us that live in the area and grew up there, it's a struggle to keep your French language.
Yes.
But as soon as we heard you, and the fact that your French may have been broken here and there, I remember feeling like, oh, he's one of us.
Like any relationship, it takes time. But again, in my development as a priest, again, it deepened my priesthood, it deepened my faith. It was a wonderful community. It really was a wonderful, wonderful community. We worked together very hard, because we also had a school that posed its own challenges. But we, as a parish, we worked very hard on amalgamating so that it wasn't school and parish, because that oftentimes in the parish you find that, we're the school, we're not with the parish, or we're the parish, we're not with the school. We worked very hard, and I think we accomplished that, that the school and the parish became one community. And it was a wonderful thing. It was really a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
So I loved my time at Fatima. There was like pionnier, the senior people. Then you had a lot of young people. Then you had French, but you also had English. You had school, but you also had parish. And so, as I said, we worked as a community. We worked very hard to try to bring it all together and say, you know what, we're a parish, we're a family, and I think, well, personally, I think we achieved it. I haven't been there for a long time, but I feel about the parish the same as when I left it. I still love you. I still love that parish. It's just a part of who I am. It's a part of my priesthood. It's a part of my vocation that will never go away. And so to all the parishioners, those who may remember me, who are still around, I want to thank you. Merci beaucoup. Merci infiniment pour tout ce que vous avez fait pour moi, comme prêtre, mais comme une personne. Je vous remercie avec tout mon cœur. I hope I didn't mess that one up.
In my years at Our Lady of Fatima, as the pastor, who really did appreciate the little things, among my joys were the Francophone community, of course, first and foremost, Deacon Guy and Hélène guiding me, and the Hispanic and the Chinese community. Sister Anita Charpentier and Diane Lebrun both helped me with my French translations of the homilies. Once Guy had left, I felt I needed help to give a really properly grammatical homily, so I always had these ladies, Sister Anita or Diane, correct my translation. I admired the French-Canadian community for their wonderful joie de vivre and down-to-earthliness, which I found and still find always very refreshing. I think of Jean Lambert, I think of all the Brunos, all the characters. At the 9 a.m. Mass, French Mass, we had amazing choir parties with Madame Hélène officiating, with Deacon Guy. Cécile Lambert had birthday parties for all of the important seniors, we'll call them.
With this great charity of Fatima, I think of the tsunami that happened in the Indian Ocean. We had that big tsunami dinner organized by the Lodewijk, but many fundraising events, especially with our new Asian communities at Fatima, to support always the tuition assistance program at Fatima School. I remember very fondly Father Scott and myself, Rob Wood, and Deacon Guy going blonde. In the year 2000, we did a fundraiser and we had our hair dyed blonde during the banquets to celebrate the brightness of the new millennium. Many Chinese New Years, many Hispanic events, you name it, we've had it. So
Our Lady of Fatima is an incredibly unique community with a very rich and unique history. A special note were the people who embodied that history. Bart and Celia Charpentier, Jerry and Louise Kidwell, the famous Lamberts, the LaGrange family, the Albert family, the Gaudette family, many amazing people. A special mention for me would be the religious congregations that have supported the parish and the school over the 75 years. Above all, the Oblate Fathers would be first and foremost. Just before I left, we had these 5 beautiful maple trees planted, and the coordinator at Belvedere Residence wanted us to plant trees that would provide shade in the summer, but light in the winter. So we went with a very rich Canadian maple. I always thought these were for the 5 religious congregations that had served at Fatima. So first sisters at the school were the Child Jesus sisters. They had back-breaking work because they had to teach and they had to clean. Father Meunier made them the janitors as well. So they couldn't last very long. They were just too exhausted. And Mother Superior removed the sisters from Father Meunier's school that he had just started. And I think the school started in 1947. Then we have the Sœurs du Bon Pasteur du Québec, the Good Shepherds of Quebec City. They remained for some time in the girls' boarding high school, which sadly didn't last for very long, I think 10 or 15 years. And then it was closed down. It became kind of home for special needs children. Then we had the Sœurs de Sainte-Croix, the Holy Cross sisters, who are still going strong, some of them, Alberta and I invited Sister Beth Ann to come to Fatima to be a kind of catechism coordinator and youth coordinator for 1 year. The Sisters of the Immaculate Heart have been in the old Oblate Rectory. They bought it in about 1987. They've been there for quite some time, and they've done amazing renovations, and the rectory was very interesting construction, but they've made it wonderful, and they have the chapel where it used to be and everything. But they, of course, have built the Immaculate Heart Daycare, which is a Montessori school program, which is a very coveted place to try to get your child into in Coquitlam, and they've been a wonderful faith-filled presence, the sisters, which has been a real blessing to have them there. And because the demographics allowed for more Asians in Coquitlam, so they really did serve the community. So I'm happy to see all the wonderful improvements in the iconic Fatima Church, the newly painted church, the new lighting, to see the parking lot looking brand spanking new. It's a complete transformation, and it's very inspiring. And the church has never sparkled like it does now. So thanks to Father Mark. I was very blessed to arrive in this community with a very active community life that Father Scott trailblazed that. He brought people together. We had very different styles, but we always respected one another very much. So I'm very grateful for the time to be at Our Lady of Fatima and to be, in a little way, a part of this great 75th celebration. So as we say in Latin, ad multos annos, may there be many, many more years at Notre Dame de Fatima.
Father Lou invites us from Hong Kong. Then bought the house. We go to Mass every morning. We will bring Father for Father Lou. Only Sunday, go out for Mass outside program. Father Departon asked me to help because they have no Chinese teacher outside a program.
And some the senior living here Chinese, they don't understand Chinese much.
Once the most, there were 6 guys. Some of them they become old enough. Went to her RCIA program and get baptized. 6 all at once.
Just start the first class.
因為喺呢度住咪要去花地瑪讀聖堂，係嚟幫助修女做嘢啫嘛。
You're working at the child care all day?
Yes, sometimes I do some volunteer in Vancouver. It's Chinese community. I went to visit the nursing home, the elder people. Now, a lot Chinese people immigration here. They don't know the English. I can speak Mandarin or Cantonese. I have the church to teach. Father know, I can speak Chinese. Then you help to the Parish Chinese community. Invite they to come our conference to have the lesson. It's great. I can serve the community of Fatima.
Je voulais tout d'abord remercier les paroissiens de Notre-Dame de Fatima, ici à Coquitlam, pour leur support moral, spirituel et aussi matériel qu'ils ont mis et continuent à mettre en œuvre pour nous supporter, nous, le prêtre. Donc, ça va tout droit dans mon cœur et je suis très fier de cette communauté. Je suis très fier de notre paroisse Notre-Dame de Fatima. Et comme vous le savez, il y a beaucoup de gens qui le disent que nous sommes un peu spéciaux. Parce que ce qui est ici à Fatima, on ne le trouve pas ailleurs. On peut le trouver, mais ici, c'est un peu spécial. Je dis franchement que j'ai trouvé à Notre-Dame de Fatima une communauté accueillante, chaleureuse, fraternelle, ainsi de suite. Cette atmosphère d'accueil, de fraternité, d'amitié et des prières nous encouragent dans notre vocation de servir le peuple de Dieu. Aussi, avoir ces fruits de l'esprit incarnés au sein de notre paroisse, au sein de notre communauté ici à Fatima, nous sommes fiers en tant que prêtres et tout joyeux à réaliser que la parole de Dieu que nous annonçons à nos paroissiens n'a pas été sémée sur les rocs, mais plutôt sur une bonne terre. Une terre qui porte beaucoup de fruits. Et tout cela nous encourage, ça nous donne cet appétit de continuer à servir et à servir dans la joie. La chose ajoutée, c'est de vous encourager à continuer toujours dans cet amour fraternel, de vivre, disons, ces vertus de l'Évangile. Donc, pas seulement pour moi, mais pour, disons, ce monde qui nous entoure. Donc, c'est comme ça que et les prêtres et les paroissiens évangélisent l'annonce de l'Évangile à travers notre propre vie, nos actes. Donc, c'est ça la puissance de l'Évangile. Donc, ça a une puissance terrible, témoigner à travers nos actes, à travers nos bonnes actions. Que Dieu est présent, Dieu est en vie dans notre communauté.
It was very supportive of vocation, you know, in terms of the people I met there. I think they were all encouraging. Yeah, there were challenges, but I think that's natural to life. I think when you can't meet your challenges, that's when life sort of falls apart. But it was good. It was good at Our Lady of Fatima. When the Archbishop first told me he was sending me to Our Lady of Fatima, I was a little bit afraid because I said, why are you sending a guy from Calgary to a French-Canadian parish? Oh, Père Claude, yes. Actually, he came he came a few months ahead of me. And so when I leave the parish, so I don't get back as much anymore. I miss the people, and you know, I'm sort of sad to see some of the old people aren't there anymore. Jean Lambert and Jerry Kidwell. I would just like to say to the parish, congratulations on 75 years. They pass quickly. We don't appreciate that. And you know, the people that they've grown up in that parish, and what they've given to the parish makes such a great difference. And I just encourage all the parishioners to keep giving of themselves, that you can continue to grow as a community.
When I was at Our Lady of Fatima, the Mercy at Burnaby, that is where I really started my formation as a deacon, and that's the parish where during that time Father Jack was the pastor there, and he only gave me the kind of a certificate to proceed from there. So after I came here, Father Patrick really supported me from the beginning. I was given all the necessary support, training, and guidelines at Our Lady of Fatima, my parish. In my formation as a lecturer, as an acolyte, I was given the opportunities to serve. And if I mention one name, Francis, he really gave me a very good support to do what I am doing now as a deacon. But to give you some background, I'm doing a ministry at the Holy Family Hospital every Sunday, doing a communion service. That has been stopped for a while due to this pandemic. And on that, I'm also the person in charge of pastoral care of the Sri Lankans living in the Archdiocese of Vancouver. So I do a lot of activities for them as well, mainly some annual activities. And also these days, during the pandemic, we did some daily activity. Every day, we were doing grocery together as a community. And apart from that, I am involved in the Fatima Parish, and I'm given various opportunities, especially I must mention Father Claude as well as Father Mark's support. Anytime, whenever I ask for any support, they are there to help me and to give me opportunities to serve and kind of training me whenever I need help. So I appreciate everyone's support from the pastors to everyone else in the community, the parish community, for supporting me to be the deacon who I am now. And I'm looking forward to get more involved with the parish activities and the and my ministry and liturgy. Yeah.
The awareness of those that had been praying for me and that in heaven I'm aware of are still supporting me. That's definitely something that sustains me. A very big example of this, and I really became aware of it. In all my years in the monastery, I've only been back to the parish once, and that was for my grandfather's funeral. And that was a moment where I really realized how precious, well, obviously my grandfather was. He was also my godfather, my confirmation sponsor, so a very important man from the parish in my own life, but also the community that gathered around with me when he died. And I recognized, though consciously, I'm not necessarily always thinking, oh, this is what I got from my parish, or this is what I have now. When a moment like a funeral happens, the things that are, the pillars that are holding things up from underneath sort of become a little bit more evident. And that was certainly what I experienced with my grandfather's funeral. I felt my vocation isn't some call that came out of a black hole. God just sort of shot a light and I just showed up. It was definitely supported by generations before me, a faith that was handed on, one father after another, family after family, up to my time. And collectively, these families continued to hand on what was most important. And this is what I received. Though all the generations that have passed, they're still upholding me. And I did sense also being there for my grandfather's funeral that the parish I had not seen at that point for like 10 years, they still were upholding me. They saw me and I felt like I had never left.
I think very much along the lines of Brother Joseph. I've had many similar experiences of the parish is still there for me. I remember when I made my solemn profession, how many of the parish came out for my solemn profession. And I, being the unorganized man that I am, didn't really invite them. But it got out to one person. I just told my mother, and before long, the whole parish was there. And that was very moving for me to see that they were there for me. Even those that I thought it would be too much for them to show up, showed up. I was particularly like Jean-Lambert was there, and he was already an old man. I wasn't expecting that, and that was very important and special moment for me to see how the parish just was there to support me for that great moment in my life when I gave myself back to the church. And I found it interesting being in the seminary with the boys. They often ask, "Oh, brother, what's your vocation story?" And well, several generations. It started before my grandfather, and with my grandfather, just all those have passed on the faith. And then, what my vocation is really to carry on that, to pass on that life, to keep it going. I find myself often telling stories and repeating stories I've heard from Jean-Lambert, from my grandfather, because I find those stories, they really pass on the heart of the faith that was passed on to me. Yeah, when I came to the monastery, I was very aware that God was calling me here to pray for others, to pray for other people, to suffer for them, to intercede. That was a pretty heart-wrenching dawning on me. I'm offering my life to God, so that I was thinking a lot of my classmates who graduated with me. Like I'm here so they can get married and I can pray for them, and so they can have lots of things that naturally I would want for myself. And I saw God as asking me to, offer my life for them, offer my life. And I just think for that also, in terms of those, my family, those that would be kind of like grandparents to me who our vocation as monks is kind of, pray for the universal church, but especially for our families and for our parish and for our archdiocese. What the parish offered me is still being offered. And if the monastery was everything, then there'd be no point to the vocation. Yeah, the parish is still there. Like, there's still lots of people most people that I know are still part of Our Lady of Fatima. We have a mutual belonging or needing of one another. It supports my vocation. It gives it meaning. It gives it purpose. Like, if the monastery had everything I needed and wanted, which it almost does, then it would kind of be like, well, what's the point of thinking about anybody else? Yeah, I think within the monastery, it is a current parish life. I live in another family. I think that's really what my parish offered, especially within the French community of the parish, was that sense of community, that sense of family. And to come to the monastery is to realize, like, this is my new family. We recognize that, we are part of the church. We're not isolated. It puts my vocation in its light.
I may have been gone a long time. I may have been in the monastery for 15 years, but that's really just the beginning. I live with some who have been here closer to 70. So I'm just getting started, just learning how to really be a man looking for God. It's not an easy journey. As we celebrate 75 years for the parish, as I see 15 years in the monastery as only the beginning, so may we see 75 years as only the beginning. I think the parish has so much more it can become with the help of God's grace and the work of the community.
Just the singing itself, again, to me was a reflection, reminder of what is going on in heaven. I like to imagine that as we sing here on earth, all of the heavenly choirs are joining in with us. And I feel that connection between the church here and the church in heaven. And also, the songs were very meaningful to me. A few that came to mind just off the top of my head. There's one, Cherchez d'abord le royaume, which is basically seek first the kingdom of heaven. There's Comme lui, savoir dresser la table, se lever chaque jour et servir par amour. Like him, to know how to set the table, to get up every day and serve with love. And another one, laisserons-nous à notre table un peu d'espace à l'étranger? Will we leave space at our table for the stranger? And these are all very simple little things, but they're the simple little things that Jesus taught in the gospel. And so, again, things that influence my vocation and continue to support me and remind me why I'm here, to do what Jesus told his disciples to do, to go and be witnesses and spread the good news.
The net missionary lifestyle is very much based in teams. So currently on my team, there are 7 of us, and the life and example we have from each other is what is most inspiring and strengthening, because we're all basically the same age, between 18 and 23. And we're all striving to live the gospel fully, striving to spread the gospel and to help each other grow in that and to help the youth in the parish here grow. It's so nice to see the youth come alive as you talk to them. And so they're thirsting. And so when you come in and bring that little bit of light of the gospel, that little bit of light of the community that we have as a team, it sparks new life in them, and then they come alive, and then it's kind of that two-way communion where you give and then they give back to you, and it's just constantly giving to each other, and it's just constantly growing.
I would say at this point it's really very challenging, but it has tested my faith life first of all. But coming here is really, I would say, a grace-filled blessing. I would say my days. When I came, I was just warmly welcomed by the parish. And being alone, I feel supported by the parish. Not really alone. I'm not really alone, but, my companion is still in the Philippines. So I'm just by myself right now. But the support and concern of the parishioners, and I just felt that sense of belonging to this parish. And that keeps me going. Praying with them, I said, I have to attend the rosary with some. the Rosary Brigade, they called them, because I said, I don't want to be praying alone all the time. So I joined them on daily rosary in the evenings when I am able to attend. Then on Wednesdays, I joined the parish with the novena to Our Mother of Perpetual Help. And also on Fridays, which is an hour of adoration and then Mass. So this faith life that I have joined with the parish is one way of helping me move on. And it's a very faith-filled experience for me in this parish. I'm so grateful for that. It's a beautiful experience with my 10 months experience here. And I would say this is a very meaningful journey, a part of my journey as a religious missionary. Thank you.